The Chicago Bulls take a horrible loss to the Portland Trail Blazers. We're going to be talking about the key takeaways from tonight's loss. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so today we are breaking down this loss to the Portland Trail Blazers as the Chicago Bulls lose 113 to 102. And just some of the key takeaways before we jump into the box score is just that really the Chicago Bulls started off well, and then after that, the Portland Trail Blazers took over. They had 3+ players that had 20 points or more in this one. This is the first time the Trailblazers have beaten the Chicago Bulls since 2021. And then on top of that, I mean, just the effort for the Chicago Bulls was terrible. There were just terrible, lapses on the defensive end. There were terrible things that happened on the offensive end. We turned the basketball over countless times in tonight's game, and the Portland Trailblazers had points off of that. And so this was just a terrible loss for the Chicago Bulls, just basically put it, just terrible. And so let's go ahead and jump into the box score and look at the key takeaways from this one. And so let's start, I think, with the players that played well. And I want to start with Vooch first and foremost. I think that Vooch played well. I mean, 17 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 block, 3 steals. He was 6 of 14 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. But what I loved about Vooch is just the passion that I'm seeing from him. I mean, there was one point where, he's punching the chair, and we've already heard about how he is, had the talk in the locker room and things like that. And look, even though the Chicago Bulls are just getting beat, I have loved the leadership that I'm getting, from him and Zach LaVine. And so even in a losing effort, Vooch continues to be a walking double-double. Next up, Zach LaVine. And so Zach LaVine, look, I know he had the turnovers out there, and I know we're thinking like, here we go again. But I think that Zach LaVine, he's just pressing at this point, and he still stacked the stat sheet. He had 27 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. He had a block in this one, and he was, 0 on the plus minus along with Vooch. And, these guys are just competing. They're trying to hang in there, trying to really lead this team. And, man, if we didn't have them on the floor tonight, this would have been even more worse than what it came out to be. So, look, Zach LaVine, Vooch, I think that they played well considering the circumstances. He was 10 of 21, 2 of 7 from 3. But there was a lot of chit-chat back and forth between the refs, which we're going to talk about that here in a second. But look, I think for the most part, they handled it as best they could. And so now let's just go ahead and just get into, I just think this was just bad. Okay, so starting with Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams, look, he finishes with 15 points. He had 3 rebounds. He had an assist and a steal. A -9, he was 5 of 11 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. And so on the outside, if you look at this, you say, oh, he actually had, a pretty decent game. No, he had 7 points in I think the first 90 seconds or something like that of the game, and really was not scoring or a huge impact for the Chicago Bulls until really the final minutes. I think he, finished putting up some more points there to get to the 15-point total. But he got cooked on defense. A lot of other players did as well. Once again, this is just one of those performances where you just have to wonder what is going on with Patrick Williams. And so next up, another player that was just missing in tonight's game, it was Coby White. Look, he had 9 points. He had 3 rebounds. He had 0 assists. He had 0 steals. He was -8. He was 4 of 10 from the field, 1 of 4. And, I mean, he really struggled. I mean, just at times, I'm just wondering, what is going on defensively, offensively. He just didn't look like he was comfortable out there, so a tough game for him. And, I mean, Josh Giddey, 0 points. He had 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He had, I think, a block and a steal in this one, but -15 in the plus-minus box score. But I think what is really concerning is in 29 minutes, he only got, I think, a total of 3 shots, 2 from the field. He had, 2 shots, 2 shots, and he was 0 of 1 from 3. And so that is very concerning, especially with no Lonzo Ball, him not getting shots out there. I mean, I just have no idea what was going on with the Chicago Bulls today. Next up, the bench. And so when we look at the bench, I think that the key takeaway from the bench, it starts with Modest Buzelis. I think that he was really a huge bright spot for us. No, did he play excellent? No, he didn't play like excellent to the point where he made no mistakes, but he scrapped out there. 7 points, 3 rebounds. He had an assist. He had 2 blocks. Once again, coming in with the block shots. He was +8 for us today in 15 minutes of action. He was 2 of 5, 1 of 2 from 3. So again, he made mistakes, but I just love the effort from the young rookie in 15 minutes of play. And then I think I've also got to give Ayo some effort as well, or some credit, for his effort as well with the 12 points. He did go out there and get 4 assists. He had a steal. He was -11, 4 of 8 from the field. I know he wasn't necessarily getting downhill as best he could. He did miss like a bunny layup towards the end. And I mean, that's just really, that explains the Bulls' night. But we still get 12 points from him off of the bench, so I do love that. But with the rest of the players here, so starting with Jalen Smith, look, he had a lot of questionable turnovers. He 7 points, 3 rebounds, a steal for him. Did have a couple blocks, but -11, but just some terrible turnovers. Dalen Terry, 6 points, 3 rebounds. He was a +3 in the box score, so I did like, some of the effort plays that I saw from him. He did get some fouls in there, but, some of that stuff is like you wonder about, but they did call it. So anyway, some good energy from him. And then Julian Phillips, look, he didn't even really get in the game until later on and really didn't even get burned like that today. And I'm talking about minutes when I say burn, but look, 2 points, a rebound, and -7 for him. He did have a nice tip-in dunk, but you could tell he was frustrated as well. And so just really questioning the amount of time he played. He played only 5 minutes in this game. And so, look, extremely disappointing for the Chicago Bulls from an effort standpoint, just looking lost on both ends of the floor. And so let's go ahead and jump into the team box score here. And so, look, the Blazers absolutely crushed the Chicago Bulls in rebounds, 50-36. A lot of this stuff was offensive rebounds. And so the amount of second chance points, just ridiculous for the Blazers today. Then next up, the turnovers for the Chicago Bulls. Look, once again, 18 turnovers. The Trailblazers had 19 points off of that, I believe. So they, feasted on the Bulls just with the mistakes. And I mean, it was just a lot of stuff. Like I talked about Jalen Smith one time, just on a break, didn't have anybody. He traveled. You had, I think, Zach LaVine just throwing into the corner, into the bench. Like just the tons of just wild turnovers for the Bulls. And then with the fast breaks, look, the Blazers 17-6 in that, so they were up and running. The Blazers points in the paint 62-52, so they feasted there. A lot of that came from the offensive rebounds and things like that, and also too Jeremy Grant and guys getting downhill. And then next up, 10-7 for the Bulls, so a little bit more active hands for us, but we really didn't do much with it. 7-6 as far as block shots. Only 21 assists on the day for the Bulls, so that just gives you an indication of just where we were as far as just moving the basketball. I mean, the player movement, body movement, or the player movement, ball movement was just not there for the Chicago Bulls. Very stagnant on the offensive end. And so the field goal percentage, 44.4% from the field, 27.6 from 3, so we didn't shoot very well. And then when you look at the Blazers, they shot a bit better at 47.2%. Again, the shots that they were getting were a lot more quality than the Chicago Bulls. And then the three-point shot, they shot it just a little bit better at 29% from 3. Now, this was what was interesting. So when we look at the free throw discrepancies here, so the Blazers went to the line 26 times. They hit 22 of those. The Bulls, 20 of 25 from the free throw line. And so, look, there were a lot of calls that I just wonder about. Like, I was like, man, is that really a call? And so you could just tell that the frustration was there. And this is the thing that I will say, and I will give credit, I guess, to the refs in this standpoint, that when you look at the Blazers and the Bulls, and this is a stat that was on the telecast, that these two are two teams that have had the lowest free throw rate of the month right now. In fact, you have the Chicago Bulls at 0.161 attempt rate, and then the Blazers at 0.184 attempt rate, and then you have the NBA average at 0.233. And so I mean, both of these teams have not really done a great job or just haven't gotten to the free throw line for whatever reason. And so I know that was probably a little bit of the frustration there, you could tell with the Chicago Bulls. But nevertheless, I mean, like I said, this was just a terrible loss for the Bulls. And just as a Bulls fan, I think that there's a couple takeaways from this. And so starting one with just the roster construction and just, you see, the Blazers, they have the size right, and it's like, man, the Bulls they've got these guards, and you know what the issue is, what happens when we don't have Vooch on the floor. And so first and foremost, the roster construction, that was super frustrating, and I think that was really apparent in this game. And next up, I talk about this all the time, but just the plan, like what are we doing as far as just, I'm not even talking about the long term for the team right now and like what you're trying to do to set the team up to just be a contender again, but I'm talking about like, how are we evaluating players right now? Because how is it that Modest Buzelis in 15 minutes gets 3 rebounds? You have Patrick Williams, who played 26 minutes, and he had 3 rebounds. And as a matter of fact, Dalen Terry had 3 rebounds. You also had Julian Phillips. Well, he had a board in this one. And then you also had Jalen Smith, who had 3 rebounds. And so, look, you had a couple players off the bench that are playing far less and are getting what you need as far as rebounds. I just talked about how this team was getting beat on the end as far as rebounding. And so how do you know that these players maybe couldn't have given you something? And then on top of that, going back to Modest Buzelis, look, Modest Buzelis leads the Bulls in block shots. I get it. He's not the best on-ball defender just yet, but I can certainly see the improvement from day one. And we're talking about, and I'm referring to Billy Donovan saying like, players have to earn minutes. At what point do players start to earn minutes? I mean, these players are putting in the work and they need to get the minutes here. And in order for the Bulls to really figure out what they're going to do, as far as the long term, you have to understand what you have from the roster, right? And you don't really know what you necessarily have with Modest Buzelis. And I'm still kind of on the fence on Julian Phillips. And Dalen Terry, I mean, maybe it's a little bit more understandable, but even then, you still need to give him some more minutes to really see what he can do out there. And so really a big question mark there as far as what the plan is, as far as finding out what you have with your team and how you're going to get, to really the bigger plan, which is getting this team back to just really being a contender. Because right now, look, even if we were to get the number 1 pick in the draft, can you honestly really tell yourself that this team would have a plan for whoever that would be? Like at this point in time, we probably would put a roster around that person that just doesn't make sense. And we would probably build accordingly, like it doesn't make sense. And so that is why I think the bottom line here is that the Bulls seriously need to get a plan. And lastly, look, this team, it looks like it is clearly it's gotten to a point where you could just tell the energy they're fighting here because they've got a lot of outside noise going on. We talked about what was going on with the Patrick Williams stuff yesterday and those whole things, or the whole thing with AK maybe being open to now trading him. And then, you're hearing this stuff about Vooch and Golden State, and it's just a constant rumor mill about this team with 2-3 weeks to go until the trade deadline. Like, I'm sure that is probably playing a factor, along with just the fact that the Bulls are just right back where they have been over the last couple seasons. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this most recent loss here. Do you feel like, yes, this was terrible and the Chicago Bulls absolutely have to get a plan in some way, shape, or form? And then just, like I said, let me know what your thoughts are about this team. And so I just want to thank everybody out there for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the content. It means a lot to us here as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season out there. Want to let you know about 66.8% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel. So make sure you go ahead and mash that subscribe button. And so, look, man, even though this was super frustrating, like I said, just as a Chicago Bulls fan, super frustrating. I think that this might have been one of the more frustrating losses so far in the year, at least for me personally as a Bulls fan. I'm still saying, go Bulls and just, gosh, get a plan, get a direction. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.